All right, today we have Brendon Ryder on the show. It's going to be a fun one. We go over some awesome topics here. We started off talking about the NBA injury bug. What should we do? What would you do? What can we possibly do? Does it have to do with pace of play? Does it have to do with economics? What is going on here and what made Stan Van Gundy just so mad? Secondly, we talk about the G League. This ties in with our NBA discussion. When we talk about the G League, is it even real? Should they make some changes? Can we change the NBA to actually put a greater emphasis on player development in the G League and what we can do there? Lastly, which also connects nicely with the G League, is college basketball. Is college basketball no fun anymore? Name some stars right now who you are excited to watch in college basketball. Probably not many. Now we'll talk about why that's the case and what are some things we might want to do to spice things up a little bit, which leads into our last segment, a fun guess your top five. Brendon gets hit with 5 random rules and rule changes, that is, to basketball. And he has to decide real time where he would rank that in his top 5. Now, remember, with this guessing game, he doesn't know ahead of time. So as he gets the rule change, he has to guess 1 through 5 where he would put it without knowing the other rules. So again, thank you as always for tuning into the Truth Hoops podcast. Excited for you guys to listen to this one. Let's get it underway. Welcome, everyone. We have a friend of the show, a dear friend, a worker on the show, not even a friend of the show, a man of the show, Brendon Ryder, former Division III basketball player. So he has some hoops knowledge, worked actually with, at the time, the Pac-10, wasn't it? Pac-10 or was it Pac-12?
No, I was still Pac-12 networks. It was Pac-12 still. We had Utah and Colorado in there.
Oh. See, I'm
yeah,
like,
we're Pac-12.
I'm artificially dating ourselves. That's not.
I mean, we grew up with the Pac-10. That's very real. And now to see, UCLA and SC move to the Big Ten, that just doesn't sit right with me. But
so we're on the
we'll see what that leads to.
Former Pac-12 employee. Wow. Our producer now. Going to share some insights today with us, and we have a fun podcast for everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about, let's just get right into the relevant stuff that you guys might have seen on Twitter. Stan Van Gundy, one of the Van Gundy brothers, Stan Van Gundy, kind of initiated this whole cascade of events when he started. Was he complaining about players being hurt? I'm not sure the exact origins of this, because I just saw that he said, Kevin Durant said he's spitting, and then Stan didn't know what that meant and thought it meant like he wasn't speaking facts, but then he was. So what's the exact Stan tweet? Do you have that up? Read that.
Yeah, so I do have the tweet. So Stan tweets, this is January 17th of this year, says 90s NBA teams just had a trainer and a strength coach. They practiced more often and harder and played more back-to-backs. Teams now have huge medical and performance staffs and value rest over practice, yet injury and games missed are way up. Something's not working. And then to that's where KD replied, Stan's spitting. And then there's where the funny miscommunication was. Stan had no idea that KD's actually on his side. But Stan raises some pretty interesting points, specifically with kind of the change in staff over the years and how we have a lot more performance staff, sports scientists like yourself, Max, that are really able to kind of quantify a lot of this data and at least provide some good recommendations on how maybe to prevent injuries. But to Stan's point, the things that have been implemented just don't seem to be working. Players are missing so many games. It's become a huge issue in the league.
Stan. Paul Favorit's kind of iced this one out pretty well. I'll give Paul a plug. I thought I'll call Paul and put him on this episode, but let's give him the plug anyway. He went through some of the data and looked at other sports and correlations to injury. And there's like 2 major correlations to injury in sports in general. One's going to be basketball specific and one's general. The first one is like movement velocity, just how fast you're moving. The pace of play in the NBA is faster quantifiably. The movements are faster. People are jumping higher. People are running faster. So just by nature, you're going to have an increase in injuries. Whether or not you argue the severity of injuries, we can get back into that in a second. But the general occurrence of an injury will be higher by just default of having to run faster. And the second one is like high velocity drives to the hoop. There are more high velocity drives to the hoop now than there used to be, more off of 1 foot, more falls, more contacts in air, which naturally is going to lead to more injuries. And so I don't even think this is actually an injury argument, though. That's my beef with this. I think it's partially an injury argument.
Hmm.
I think it's an evaluation of risk. And I think that's where Stan Van Gundy's all wrong, because it's not a matter of, is someone like catastrophically hurt more or less often. It's the highest likelihood of an injury to get hurt is actually being hurt already. So any minor injury, if you're dealing with a guy who's valued at, $30 million a year, what's the point if your risk is high, even with the mildest of injury, like a sore knee that you bumped on a dresser? When the person's that valuable, it's really an issue of how valuable each game is. Because what the teams have done, they've waited and they've said, look, we don't value every game the same. We value playoff games to be more valuable. So therefore, we're going to make sure at all costs our athletes are available for the playoffs. As a matter of fact, we don't even really pay them for the regular season. We pay them for their performance in the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard,
Exactly.
like the perfect example. And so Stan's complaining of like, oh, we have all these resources, which you could also argue the resources really aren't there either. You're paying one player $30 million and a performance staff at most. The entire performance staff, maybe $1 million in combined salaries, right. 1.2. So you're not even a tenth of your highest paid players allocated season salary to your performance staff. So it's very asymmetrical there. So despite having people, you can't just say that people there are doing an effective job with resources, because they themselves might not be funded like a player is being funded. And so I think we have a series, an intertwined web of economics and actually maybe some more injuries occurring here that cause teams for people to not have players play. But when you sign someone to a 4-year contract, the biggest risk you can have financially is not for the player to not play well. It's to not play the last 2 years of the contract because he's hurt, because this is guaranteed NBA money. And so even if you sacrifice in totality, partial, like an aggregate of a year of playing, because you've missed 25 games every year, but you're able to contribute to wins each year, and most importantly, the most important time of the year, the playoffs, then that team can appraise that as a value that they can accept. And so I hate hearing players talk about this. I hate hearing coaches talk about it, because it's economics. It's about them dollar signs. And no one thinks about that. No one's standing, people are getting hurt. Something's not working. And the players go, we want to play less games and travel more and get paid more. And the whole thing is just silly. The whole thing is factually silly. And I heard some debates as to how they can fix this play through bumps and bruises kind of things. And Bill Simmons brought a couple up, and it's like, maybe you have to play X number of games, whatever the strict line is, to be even considered for All-Star, even considered for All-NBA, which are often heavily incentivized bonuses in players' contracts. Maybe you go as far that they can't even get the playoff incentives, because people don't realize this. When you win a playoff round, you get paid a crap ton of money. You get paid way more. You literally make more money when you win a playoff round than when you do win any game in the regular season. The bonus for winning a playoff round is huge. So there's literally more financial incentive for the athlete to play for himself in the playoffs than it is for regular season.
Yeah, and I think, Max, you also kind of alluded to it a bit in how things have changed so much, not in just the athletes like you were talking about. I think it's very clear athletes today, bigger, stronger, faster, which is going to lead to more injuries, because there's more force. There's more, variability in there that will lead to injuries. But an interesting kind of point here is too how the game has completely changed. And now I'm just kind of using my general observations, but, back in the 90s, early 2000s, strength was probably a big incentive for players to have and to increase. You look at Jordan in The Last Dance, they talk about his next step was really improving his strength, getting stronger so he could deal with those Pistons teams. But if you look at the game now, everything is so spread out. So you're looking at covering way more space. You're running way more distances between each possession. And it's a different type of stress on the body. And there was this study done by Plus One, by these 4 different sports scientists. And they were really trying to focus on what type of injuries are most common, specifically pre and post COVID. So the timeline's a little bit skewed here, not quite what I was looking at from comparing the 90s to today, but even just from the early 2010s to now, we're seeing a huge increase in these different types of injuries that were previously very uncommon. And a lot of those are abductor, hip, and groin injuries, where, back in the 90s, you're looking at a lot of knee ankles kind of injuries. Where here now we're looking at a whole different type of injury that the league is dealing with. And I just kind of want to get your opinion on what you think the kind of change in how the game is played is kind of contributed to that. Because we look at Steph, he's totally revolutionized basketball. Everything's just pace and space. And I know that, I would imagine that has a huge impact on, the stress on the athlete's body and kind of how they need to change the way they prepare for the season and for the postseason, especially.
Yeah, it's a tough question because you can't get the true granular facts. Like, is it actually an injury? Are they just calling it an abductor because he's sore and they don't want him to have an actual adductor strain? And so it's just increase in diagnoses. And so when you have like a very nebulous thing, like a hip, where you can't like point to like a play typically, like, oh, that's the hip play. Like, and yeah, you can get, I'm 30 years old. You wake up out and you come out of bed sometimes. Now that I'm not 19, I'm sure if you're 40 or 50 listening to this, that you might be having some hip pain too, low back pain. The question is, would people even consider evaluating that in the past? Would the player even go to the trainer? Because the athlete goes to the trainer with pain. That exchange isn't going to end with, he's not hurt. It's not how it's going to happen with a trainer-player interaction. There's going to be some sort of a quote-unquote diagnosis or appraisal of an injury. So the trainer is never in power, and this shouldn't be this way either, to say yes or no, that's hurt. Now, the same thing, maybe back in the 90s, that wasn't even reported. Oh, I'm hurt, my hip hurts. But that guy's not making that much money. And the way the game is played culturally, you're going to play through it. And so the athletic trainer or whoever is doing it isn't going to say, oh, you're hurt. Because apparently Jordan had severe tendonitis numerous years, maybe even throughout his whole career. But maybe that was just the cost of doing business for him. And so would he have been sat more often out of fear? Because at the time, people didn't realize how valuable Jordan was. He was so undervalued that when you watch The Last Dance, he literally retired on his prime. And nowadays you can't even imagine that. You would sit him for a year if he wanted to, just to recover, and would pay him absorbent amounts of money just to possibly play in the playoffs. But nowadays we don't do that. And so, yeah, you could say the pace of play, the game is different. People do more crossovers, change of direction, lateral movements. And I'm sure that contributes to possible injuries. Shoes are important. Shoes grip more. They allow you to get different friction forces so you can lean more. You're not playing in Chuck Taylors where you can't cut, and you're also often in like a very compact position. But again, understanding how basketball works nowadays is really important. The trainer who's making, 100K maybe, who's going to evaluate an athlete who's worth $30 million. And there's even an ounce of like, hey, I'm kind of hurt. Oh, sit him. Because if he gets hurt, you got to realize that's 300 times that person's salary who just got hurt. They could hire 300 trainers over 1 year missed of players making $30 million a year. Just put that in perspective for a second. Right? Isn't that the math? Is that 100 times? Yeah, because 3 is 30 is 30. 30 is 3. So yeah, 300 times the salary of that person. So you don't think there's some level of catering going on there? I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but just let's be honest, people. This is how it works.
Right. So I guess, and this is the $1 million question we're asking right now, what's the solution in the modern NBA? And that's, the question the league, I think, currently is really trying to figure out, because it's killing the fan experience.
Lil Wayne said it best. Money talks, bullshit walks. That's the easiest thing.
With that Wayne bar in mind, I guess what does the league need to do?
You got to incentivize players. Maybe you got to NFL. It's NBA is the most player friendly league of all the leagues.
Which is where I think they run into a lot of issues, right? Because how's the player association going to take these new incentives to, you got to play at least 70 games or whatever it is, 60 games to be eligible for all NBA accolades.
If I am I'm not pro this option, but if you're an NBA team, I'm even saying this for guys who work with NBA players, right? You don't want it to be that way. You want guys to get paid, but NFL ain't guaranteed, man. You can get cut, you lose your money. You get hurt, you lose your money.
Yeah.
They can cut you whenever. NBA is all guaranteed. They cut people and just pay them $2 million the next year on salary just because it's guaranteed money. And so you walk a very tricky situation there. I don't know if giving percentage of ticket sales would be something. Active players get percentage of ticket sales per game. You could start to have certain valuations on players, and if they don't play, the games aren't. I don't even know how to begin. You have to like have some scalability of this person's responsible for X number of tickets when he plays. So when he doesn't play, he doesn't get that money. Because again, awards are one thing. Maybe you somehow make the regular season mean more, because that's probably the most obvious situation is how do I make the regular season mean more, but at the same time have enough games to make more money. Like Bill Simmons said, people like they raised it to 82 games because the NBA needed more money.
Right.
And so how do you get more money while lessening the number of games? Like are the media rights going to suffer there? Or it's so complicated. And it's kind of a Pandora's box situation. You could penalize draft picks, essentially, maybe could be your means of doing that, because then you incentivize GMs to get players to play. And then if someone's actually hurt, how do you make sure he does sit? There's a lot of...
That's true. How do you protect the player from themselves? Yeah, that's a huge part.
NBA
But I don't know. Is that an issue in the NBA though? That's I don't know. It seems like players are more willing to take that rest than risk, a further injury. You look at Brandon Ingram. I don't know what that toe injury was, but he was out since November and he's just finally getting back this week. And, like you said, he has that guaranteed money. So what's the point of going out there and risking, basically just exacerbating what could be a minor injury? But is it worth missing 3 months of the season? I'm sure the Pelicans aren't happy with that, injury report. So it's like you said, it's walking that tight line. But I wonder if, if we're looking at the season, what are your thoughts on maybe eliminating back-to-backs? We keep an 82 game season, but we expand it. I don't know what the media title rights would look like there, but
I think
if you eliminate the back-to-backs, yeah.
So if you look at the schedule, a lot of these they play like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, like Tuesday, like it's every other day. I'm not totally against playing back-to-backs, but I think they should stay in the same city. Play a baseball. Play 3 games in 4 days. You have two-way players for a reason.
I like that idea. Like you really just do like your whole 3-game series.
Remember in the bubble, guys were playing out of their minds because they got to settle. Go play a series. Go play your 3 games there. And if you have 3 games there and certain players are going to sit certain games, you can announce that beforehand. So when people buy tickets, they know. You can play 3 games in 4 days, and then you have 4 days off. You travel the next city. You just kind of play these. You still, people won't like hearing that, but look, you have 14 guys on a roster. Challenge the coach to coach. Don't just roll the best 5 out and play basketball.
Right.
Like a baseball manager has to adjust. Different pitchers pitch every. You don't just get to pitch the best pitcher every game. You pitch different pitchers. You have different rotations. You have different lineups. And with that, it gives the G League more credence because you could even expand the roster a hair. You could have 4 two-way guys. Then it has the bench depth matters. And you have to go play these games. And then it's up to the coach to really coach beyond just end game stuff. I think that's the best option, in my opinion. I think that's really, you go somewhere, you go for 5 days, you play 3 games, you get out. Because that's the same 3 games and 5. Go to the next place, take your break in between, 3 games, 4 games, get out. And then if you're in a homestand, you can churn faster, right? If you're at home, you could do 3 games in 5 days and then another 3 games in 5 days because you're staying at home. Versus like if you travel for that, then you have to take an X period of time off.
Yeah, and I'm guessing the scheduling logistics for that would be pretty nightmarish. But then let's assume that's an option, and there's enough data to support it. The NBA bites at it. Does the postseason follow the same schedule it currently has? Because now you're moving from a season of, okay, I'm a player, I'm expecting to have 3 games. If I'm a Warriors player, I'm playing 3 games at Chase Center this week. But now, okay, we got to the postseason. I'm making it to the semis, the conference finals. Now I'm playing every other day again, traveling back and forth. Are you worried about that stress on the player? Are you worried about them breaking down in the postseason? Do we need to shift
No.
the thinking of how we schedule a postseason, or does that all stay consistent with how it currently is?
Is it an issue right now? Until it's an issue, don't fix it.
I guess not. I guess not in the playoffs, but
Yeah,
I
so don't.
wonder if we're not matching kind of the styles between the regular season and the playoffs, how that would mess with the player physically and mentally. Because
It's
now
already
you're talking
playoffs. It's all
about a
different
huge
anyway.
strain in traveling.
It's all different anyway. You enter a different world. That's what you gotta, no one's complaining because instead of like March Madness, the players don't go, now we're playing Friday, Sunday. I forgot how to play basketball.
I mean, those guys are also playing 30 games a season compared to 82, right? That's a
But
bit
you
of
would
an apples
have
to
less
oranges
total minutes in the method I suggested. You'd have less total
of
minutes this season.
travel.
And playing. Guys wouldn't play. You wouldn't play Giannis 40 minutes, 40 minutes, 40 minutes.
Mm.
In the same way, you're not going to pitch a pitcher 110 pitches every game. Right? You're going to make sure that teams, and this is going to be so important because this goes right into our next topic where the G League isn't real. The G League doesn't exist. The real issue is G League for the NBA is just the most bizarre form of basketball you'll ever witness. You look at all the scoring leaders. I made a TikTok on this. Go through it. Guys who've led scoring in G League, they don't do anything. Like you don't lead the NBA in scoring and do nothing. You don't lead college basketball in scoring and do nothing. You don't lead high school basketball. It's the only league in existence where if you lead it in scoring, it has no ramifications on your success at the next level. And so right now, the G League is suffering from a basketball standpoint because there isn't a huge emphasis on player dev. If you just look at it logically speaking, if you look at guys who play on two-way contracts or guys who are in, even I guess a 10-day supposedly, or guys who get reassigned down there, they're making so much more dinero than the guys on the team. Like you make like 30K, 35K playing in the G League, but then you got guys who are on contracts for $2.5 million that you're playing in the same team. So the question is, how can I place an emphasis on player development the same way a farm system does in baseball? Well, let's make the roster larger in the NBA. So now we have to play these multiple games in a row or multiple games in a series, for example, over 4 days. And now we can't play every player 40 minutes. So I'm going to have to play the guys who I've been developing in the G League. And so now it places an emphasis on the development. So guys, if you have more guys who have the option to actually make it on an NBA team, the play of basketball in the G League will naturally get better. Because right now there's like, if you look at every team, there's like 10 guys who won't touch an NBA roster ever on like every team. And it's really unfortunate. I'm not saying that the G League is a bad situation because it offers wonderful things, but it's just like, how do you fix this like randomness of basketball going on here? And I think that ties into how you would change the schedule and make it way more uniformed in terms of how you're trying to develop guys there, what roles they'll play, then have them go play. And that, I think that's one option to do it. Or the other option, you take the G League and you put the whole thing overseas. You make it an overseas.
And that's been a huge, not incentive, but a huge, basically just objective for the NBA is to make this league much more global. But the G League right now, as I'm looking at it, I feel like it's a league where the NBA can just be completely experimental with right now, specifically different rules and rule changes. You look at the All-Star scoring and how they've changed that, that began in the G League. And I know the NBA is looking at this midseason tournament and they're going to experiment it in the G League. So the G League's value in the player development area is definitely lacking. And I 100% agree with you. You're looking at these rosters, 90% of those guys just won't make it up, to the actual big show. But there's a lot of value there right now with how they're kind of experimenting with moving basketball forward,
but
specifically NBA basketball.
If they don't play like an NBA team, it's not really experimental. It's just like a men's league. That's the G League is not a men's league. That's a bad take. That's not what I'm trying to say. The point is,
I see what you're saying.
It's a non-specific experiment. Look at the G League scores. We watched. It's like 800 to 400 in a game. It's like the most absurd, like zero defense. It's like some pseudo hybrid AAU game being played. And I think it comes down to the guys don't get paid enough. Right? You're getting paid no money. What's the incentive to Okay. Like, and then you're trying to get into a situation because it's so difficult to get into a team, as you show. We'll walk through the players who lead in scorers in a second. If you can't actually make it to the NBA or make it, I don't know, the rosters aren't flexible enough to allow it, then why are you going to, cater to a specific certain role this team might want you to do, despite the team never actually investing in you? And that's where that expansion of like these hybrid players would make sense. Because right now you can have a two-way guy, but they don't even play. So like, cool, you got a two-way guy. We've incentivized the G League, but they don't play. So, okay, why don't I make it so the two-way guys have to play? We have to have these guys play.
And like you said, then you're forced as an organization and a team to invest in your player development. You can't just throw a G League
guy
team
on the bench is going to get 15 minutes one game in that series, and he might be the reason why you win or lose.
So I guess if we also look at the G League in kind of the lens of how like Prem League soccer does their club systems, what are your thoughts on maybe using the G League as more of a purely player development spot? We eliminate a lot of this AAU, trouble that we have, and we just have the best players identified from a young age, and they're just brought up in these G League systems, kind of similar to club soccer.
No, I've been to club soccer places overseas, man. It's a different world. They like dorm them completely there. That's crazy. It's almost like militaristic.
I mean, how different is it from IMG Academy, Oak Hill, and these different academies that are just
they're literally like
But in terms of the structure of it, what's the point of you going to IMG Academy to play football? What's the point? Are you there to get an education? No, you're there to get recruited. You're going to go play Division I basketball. That's the first step to getting to the pro league in the United States, right? If you're going to go to one of those academies, every Oak Hill player, their plan is to go to Oak Hill, hoop there for 4 years, go D1, one and done, right? So I mean, we kind of have that system right now with these high school academies. So I'm wondering if the NBA just looks at that and says, why don't we just provide this in the G League? And we're seeing it now with the one and done guys that go straight G League and then to the league. So
it's a viewership though. Like, why would you I would rather watch competitive high school basketball because guys are playing really hard because they still have to make it somewhere. And you would just go watch a G League game. I've watched too many. All right. I have ESPN Plus on my Hulu and have little G League games on, and I watch them all and I flip through them all. And I say this about Summer League too. Just like a dangling carrot. This makes no sense just to watch. You watch college basketball, and that's people are playing for the school. And then you watch guys overseas. They're playing because those areas have huge fan support in the big ones. And the G League games are empty. I watch a G League game like 9 people in the crowd. So
imagine if you're going to go to a G League game and literally the nation's top 50 players all signed to G League teams. That's more interesting to watch than a bunch of guys trying to make it in the league. Wouldn't you say? I mean, if you change that league, the product's gonna change with it.
So let's get into that right now. Then, so college basketball. Name one star right now.
Yeah, I'd say Jaime from UCLA. That's about all I got.
Exactly. So
that's all. Who are the
really 50 college basketball players we're putting in the G League right now who are going to make people pay attention? That's the real issue.
But look at the NCAA. Is that more of an NCAA problem though right now? Because college basketball is a terrible product, and we are going to get into that as well, and some rule changes that we think can at least help make the game a little bit more watchable, and in my opinion, take the game out of the coach's hands so much. But I don't know. I don't know if that's a one-to-one comparison if we're looking at the current state of the NCAA versus the G League, and if we change kind of the thinking behind it.
You're arguing that if you take the top 50 high school players and put them in the G League, it would draw attention. Yet the top 50 high school players go to NCAA, and you can't even name them right now.
Do they all go to the NCAA? A lot of them do go to the G League. A bunch of them going overseas.
No.
A lot of the best guys are now going to different places. And then NCAA basketball compared to NBA basketball, just the rules themselves. The NBA is a better product. It's way more entertaining. So if you're going to have these 50 best players playing in NCAA, Tom Izzo systems, Jim Boeheim systems, these very regimented, no freedom type of basketball systems, which provide their own value, sure. But if you take all those kids, insanely talented kids, and plop them into an NBA style of basketball, it's going to be way more entertaining. It's going to be way more fun to watch.
let's talk about this. College football relative to NFL are of equal entertainment, in my opinion. I think people like college football sometimes more than the NFL.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I don't think anyone in the past 3 years, a lot of people don't like the NBA either, by the way. But
Oh,
I
right
don't
now the
think
product's pretty bad. I can't lie.
I don't
It's not
think
great.
they would hold college basketball on the pedestal that it used to be on 10 years ago. And I think the reason why is people in college football, the reason why we love college football is because of the disparity between great athletes and the athletes they get to play against who aren't very good. Like, what's not fun, or what's how's it not fun to watch Reggie Bush run for 800,000 yards in a game? It's amazing. And so
Yeah.
the question is, how can we continue to highlight players' talents? And I think college football does a lot of things that are not interfering with the player talent. And what I mean by that is that it's not like, oh, in college football, you can't run motion offense. You can't put someone in motion, or you can't run a spread. But in college basketball, you can run a zone. You can run these things that like literally hinder the athleticism of players.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and I think
And I
that's
mean, I would argue college football rules are built more for big explosive plays and highlighting those player, type of skills and their just overall athleticism, like you were saying. I mean, look at just college football offense. It's now finally creeping into the NFL, and it's all just big play potential. And then you juxtapose that with college basketball. It's just the polar opposite. It's like the game wants these really fun athletic players to just be, here's your role, you're sticking to it, that's all you're doing. You're not shooting 15 footers, Mr. Four-Man. All you're going to be doing is boxing out and getting rebounds. That's all you're doing. And if you catch it in the mid post, it's either quick swing to the wing or you're going to dump it down low to the center. Those are your options.
I think college basketball is too physical in the paint. I think it needs to be more physical in the perimeter and far less physical in the paint. I think NBA reffing does a better job. NBA, it seems like the first contact is ownership to the defense and the offense. So like you watch Drew Holiday play defense, he's very physical in the first contact. The second and third are owned by the offense. Mm-hmm. So if you establish angle on the offensive end, then you can't get really hit again. I watch college basketball game. These guys get like sideswiped on the head shooting.
Yeah, no, I mean the bangs in college basketball, it's extremely physical. And then, no defensive 3 seconds. The lane is just a complete nightmare all the time. There's no space.
Shorten the shot clock.
Yeah.
Bring it down to 20. Play NBA rules.
That's what I don't get. Why doesn't the NCAA just have your college basketball system just prepare players for the NBA? Right? That's going to give you the most entertaining product, is it not? And that's the whole goal of the NCAA. They don't care about actual student athletes getting their degree. They want an entertaining product that will sell.
And no one really cares in terms of like stats. They're not like heralded like baseball where I can't do that because I don't want to ruin the significance of the home run champ or whatever. Like no one knows college basketball stats. You can make it 24 seconds. If someone beats Doug McDermott's all-time NCAA leading score record, who cares? Like no one cares. It's fine.
Yeah.
We want to watch fun games. We want to watch exciting stuff. And I think it's all tied together because right now you have the college product not preparing people for the NBA. So when college kids go to the G League, you don't have this like continuity. It's like this new form of basketball. And so that leads the brand of basketball to like be this weird chaotic entity. And then you have the NBA, which exists, but then you have people when they are good enough, they are no pressure to play because there's too much of disparity. Like what are you going to say? Who's the other Kevin Durant laying around? Like you can't just, and there's no need to force their hand because the regular season doesn't matter. And then you might sit a couple of guys, but because the games are essentially rotational in terms of like every other day, you can play the same 7 guys a lot of minutes, and then you're not forced to have any of the development in the G League. So it's kind of like this chicken or the egg phenomenon where we're having a problem where you can't just pick some guy off the G League and put him in a game, and you might like be the reason why you lose all of a sudden nowadays because they're not ready for it. And why aren't they ready? They've been playing basketball. You get lots of guys who are 19 who are ready, but why aren't these guys? So it's I don't know, call it frustrating, but it's definitely a tough problem that the NBA is now in a kind of back against the wall to figure it out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things they obviously have to kind of rethink. But that's the one thing I appreciate about a league like the NBA. You know, they're not just going to sit on what's worked for them, especially with Adam Silver as their commissioner. I mean, he's going to play with a bunch of different ideas and find a solution to these things and these problems. But I love the idea of leveraging the G League a little bit more. I feel like there's so much potential there. And they're figuring it out. You know, I think with how creative they're being with that league, I love it. But I think to your point, the next step, I think, is including player development in there. And I think that will help with a lot of the injury issues we're looking at and we're seeing.
All right. Oh, yeah, I agree. Listeners, look, if you have an opinion, let us know. Comment, share, whatever your thought is that we should do. Please feel free. We're open-minded because even though we're right, we're open-minded.
We're like the G League. We're trying to experiment. We're looking for what'll work.
Well, what's your opinion? Like, if you're a listener, what do you think would be an effective change for the rules? What would you do? Because these all appear to be intertwined. We're going to take a break, and we got one last topic right here. It's going to be a ranking of the top 5. I'm going to present Brendon with 5 random rule changes to the NBA. He doesn't know what these rule changes are yet. I did not send it ahead of time. And he will have to rank as they come in 1 to 5. So without knowing the other ones, he has to guess where he would rank the rule changes.
Just putting me way on the spot here.
All right, we'll take a break and we'll come back to it. All right, we are back and we have the top 5 rule changes Brendon has to put together as they come in. So this is kind of a think on your feet game. Brendon does not know the rule changes. So as you listen to this, you have to try and rank along with us, or with Brendon in this case, where you would put these rule changes. 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. We're going to start it off here. We're going to go one at a time in no particular order. First one is, should there be, or I guess I'm not saying should there be, it is a rule change. Rule change 1. 4-point line.
Oh, 5 last. I despise the idea of a 4-point line. That just makes the game so gimmicky and campy. It's fine with the 3-point line. Let's work on getting we have enough space. We don't need a 4-point line. Now, the range of like players like Steph, Clay, Dame, it'd be fun to see a 4-point line maybe for a few games, but no, I hate that rule.
That is
I'd put that dead last.
That's extremely aggressive for not knowing my other rule.
I guess so, but I'm letting you know I do not like the 4-point line idea. I hope that stays.
Number two, we adopt the European goaltending rule where you can hit the ball out of the cylinder while it's live.
Okay, yeah, I put that. God, I gotta know what your other options are. This is rough. I'd put that at 2. Honestly, I love watching that idea. Then we eliminate this whole issue of the offensive goaltending problem. And people can be way more aggressive when that ball is on the rim. I actually really love that idea. I love when I watch FIBA and I see these guys just slapping the ball off the rim. I think it makes defense way more dynamic. And it makes things a lot more clear from the offensive side when you can touch the ball, when you can't. So yeah, I put that at 2.
All right. Number 3, actually called on ball defensive 4-second count. So
4 seconds. So we're eliminating a second from the 5.
They don't even call the 5. I think it's off. It's a live. If you have a live dribble, they don't call it anymore. And back in the day, it used to be a live dribble. Used to be when we were in high school, it counted, but now they got rid of it totally. If you're live dribble, you can't pick up a 5 count. Should they introduce a 4 count on a live dribble?
In the NBA, I don't think it's that needed. I haven't seen it be an issue. I'll put that at 4, right behind the stupid 4-point line.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't need to explain much more. I mean, I don't see a lot of NBA guards just holding the ball at the top of the key for the whole shot clock, or them just trying to ice the game. I think a 24-second shot clock eliminates a lot of this kind of stalling.
Really, we don't see Luka dribble the ball for 9 minutes.
That is true. I mean, but
how do you stop that? In the current rules, there isn't a defensive mechanism that can stop that. The 4-second rule allows a defender at least creep in the paint for 3 of them.
It's something to think about, but I'll still put it at 4. I still just don't think it's that needed. I know people look at the James Harden style of play, the Luka Doncic style of play, and they don't like it, but I don't think it's that big of an issue.
All right, rule number 4. If you as a team miss 4 3-pointers in a row, the 5th miss counts as a personal foul on the shooter.
Wow. This is definitely out of the box type of rule. I really like this actually, the more I'm thinking about it.
This is the
Because then you're
anti-huck
eliminating all
rule.
this shot jacking.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can't just huck a bunch of threes. I mean, my only slot for it's not one, so I guess I gotta stick it at three. So I'll go three. I like that rule. That's an interesting idea to really limit the amount of just shots you could jack up. My boy Russ, if you could see him up there, might have an issue with it. Hopefully he doesn't shoot that many threes, but
Number 5, getting hot. Anything above 3 makes in a row is worth 3 points. So if you make 3 twos in a row, like the old NBA
this is my
Jam,
number one. That's terrible. All right, so if you hit 3 straight, you're getting an additional point, you said?
for every basket. Yep.
Every basket. So if let's say I had 3 layups in a row, my 4th layup's worth 3 points.
As a team,
if I hit
yep.
that 3, it's a 4. Okay, as a team too.
So it's encouraging the reintroduction in high. It now removes effective field goal percentage. We don't see 3-point hucking, because if you can make 3 twos in a row, then
you're getting that extra point there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It doesn't sound good at first, but it's
I was
actually
gonna say
good.
at first I was a little nervous about that, but well, not nervous, but I wasn't so sure. Yeah, the way you position that, it kind of would also make teams be a little bit more careful with their offensive possessions and not be so quick to shoot the first 3 that they see. God, that'd be so interesting for pace too. How would that influence pace? I guess I got to put it at 1 because that's the only slot I have open. Kind of a terrible strategy by me. I should have definitely put the one I liked most when I heard it at 1, but yeah, I guess that's my list there. I'll keep that one at 1. So my favorite rule, according to this game, is going to be 3 straight makes equals an additional point on the next basket for the team.
There's a couple of bonuses. There's a couple of bonuses I didn't put in there. We can roll.
Okay, let's go through let's go through the bonuses. Then we can review
the bonus round that didn't make it is if your team if any player misses all free throws on the free throw line, the total misses are minus points. So if he misses 3 free throws, it's now minus 3 points. So I cannot stand this clanking of free throw phenomenon we have at times. So he missed 2 free throws. It's not a nil. It's minus 2.
So the issue with that rule would be what happens with the now hack-a-shack type of stuff. We got to find a way to balance that. How about we just make some
shots?
Well, that's been the case. That's been the whole argument for getting rid of the hack-a-shack rule, right? Is you just got to make your free throws. But we know these players they work on their free throws, right? It's not like Dwight Howard didn't work on his free throws.
Okay.
Right? This guy was making 100 out of 100.
I'm stopping. 3 personal fouls. That's it.
3 personal fouls.
Yep.
Is what? Then you're out?
Yeah.
Wow, 3. I mean, guys pick up 3 fouls in the first quarter pretty quickly. I don't like that one. That just limits. Then everyone's gonna be playing real soft defense. I mean, 3 fouls and you're done. I mean, 1 foul in the first 5 minutes, you're on the bench.
We got 2 more cool ones. A contact zone. So forget a charge arc. It's a free contact zone. Anything within the charge arc, the wall rule no longer exists. Hands can come down. You can initiate contact on defense. It cannot be flagrant, but you can chest into an opponent vertically within the charge
so you
circle.
still have to keep the verticality kind of foundation there. You can't just be like hacking a guy and you're in the contact zone, no foul.
But it's not like
that's crazy.
It's like a defensive player. Like you can he's now defensible. So you can still hit the guy. Like it's not the same contact as a defenseless player in football, but you can still contact the guy.
That's an interesting idea. I feel like it's still very much kind of that way now. No, like I feel like as long as you're standing vertically, and
if you're in the charge circle, that's immediate and 1.
I gotta refresh my rule knowledge. If that's the case, then I think for sure, then yeah, you should be able to contact the offensive player if he's in that charge circle. You should be able to, at least if you're going vertically, make sure there can be a little bit of contact there, because then what else is the defender really supposed to do? I guess rotate earlier and be in position on time, but
all right, the last 3
we got to give the defense a bit more help here.
Last 3,
everything's so catered toward offense.
Speed. I don't want you to talk through this. I want you to speed up. I'm trying to get some urgency here. I don't want you to gather your thoughts. I don't want you talking away. Yeah. Elam ending.
Elam ending, love it. I'm all for it. I think it makes the game so fucking fun, makes it so dynamic. You're looking at how the All-Star game is played now with the Elam ending. The All-Star game is entertaining now in the fourth quarter. Like, it's tense. It's fun. I love that rule. It makes your sub patterns way more interesting, makes the end of games way more aggressive. I'm all about the Elam rule. I know the purists probably won't want to see this thing implemented in real NBA basketball, but I think it would be an amazing addition and a cool way to kind of refresh the league. And I'm all about it. I love the Elam ending.
4-on-4.
No 4-on-4. Give me the 5. I need 5-on-5. 4-on-4 is too much space. We're gonna see even more injuries. Keep 5-on-5.
Okay. Fair enough.
You're telling me I can't think, dog. I'm going as fast as I can.
All right. The last one is home court. So I love the idea when I played backyard baseball growing up on the video game that you could like have certain things take place, like cards you could play. I'd love to like remove the backboard for 5 minutes in a game, or like.
So we're talking about some special
ball, increase your hoop size for 5 minutes, for like to double the size of the hoop.
All right. So how do these rules get activated? So what needs to happen for the backboard to be removed?
You have to have like 5 blocks in a game.
Like so is every game going to be different too? Each game is a different set
like
of objectives
like the old
to get for
NFL blitz where like you do like the random, you get like giant players on accident.
Yeah, at the beginning, the 3 little
3
icon
cards
codes.
that could come up.
Yeah.
Like randomly drawn. Like if you hit 4 threes in a row for 5 minutes, the hoop is now twice the size. Or like if you have like 4 dunks in a row, there's now 3 seconds inside the arc. So it's like
3 in the arc, dude.
So it's like super encouraging, just more yams. And it's only for your side for 3 minutes.
See, like this is what the NBA should be doing with the G League, Max. You need to be in their creatives department.
You got like
these new rule changes.
You get 4 steals. You get now 7 defenders. You get 2 guys who just sit on defense.
Oh my God. Well, I gotta this just came to me when you described that. I actually was talking about this with a couple of my old teammates. What if the NBA implemented hockey substitution rules?
Yeah, I thought about that.
Just no stoppage. It's just you can sub guys in and out as the game's going.
Europe does that with inbounds. Right, Europe is a live inbound, live out of bounds, isn't it? I think you just pick up.
I'd have to familiarize myself with those FIBA rules. I mean, those ideas are interesting. I mean, it just completely changed the way basketball is played and your whole thinking of the game. So it'll never happen, but it's fun to think about. God, could you imagine like a whole line swap in transition and then trying to get back to your matchups and figure out who the hell you're guarding? That would be insane.
That's what these other leagues should do. That's my take on it. Not the G League, not the NBA, but like some of these auxiliary leagues. Have some fun. Play different brand of basketball.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
That's all we have for the podcast today. Thanks, friend of the show, producer of the show, Mr. Brendon Ryder. Thank you,
Max, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I love listening to you and Shane. Shane, miss you, man. Don't worry, I'm just keeping the seat warm for you. But yeah, excited for what you guys have been coming up with, and thank you guys all for listening.